Hello, good morning, and welcome to Lake Placid in the Adirondack Mountains. We're in upstate New York, ready for another brand new Olympic cycle, the first day of the summit of Everest, a long way away. Hello, everybody. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me, Bree Schaff, as we get ready for the first FIBT Viessmann World Cup of the season at your home track here, Bree. Tell us about this Lake Placid track.
Oh, Martin, I love this track. It is a workers track. You can see 107 vertical drop up at the start here. It's a relatively long start, but the push is important. You would think on a long track that it wouldn't be as important as it is here. Coming into turn 2, there has been some problems here in training. We could see some action out of there for some of the newer athletes on tour. They're going to take a tap out of 3 because that is a tight corner going into the Devil's Hideaway. This is where if you have a tight cowling on your sled, your head is getting rocked around. Coming around turn 8 and 9, that can be a tricky spot. 2 sleds rolling into there, and the big shady 2. Touch it off of there. You don't want to hit a wall going to 11 because that could make for some trouble out of 12. We'll see action there as well. Coming into Benham's Bend, a dip, and you go weightless here. It's easy to break into a skid. That can ruin your race. Now, 17-18, the notorious spot of Lake Placid. You see a lot of crashes there in Bobsleigh, and coming into the finish eye, any foreign athlete is now breathing a sigh of relief.
So a couple of crashes down there in training, couple of crashes down just above the chicane as well. Pierre Luders, who is now coaching the Russian Federation, still the track record holder. But Bree, we had a snowy week, but we had competition here last week with the Luge World Cup. The track is in sensational conditions, and it might be track record material here.
Oh, this is absolutely ideal. I mean, we would be looking at potential track records today if it wasn't a post-Olympic season, missing all of the all-star brakemen that we've seen in the past.
Well, with -5 ice temperature and no sign of the sun breaking through, we should have great conditions. The ice will hold up really well. First man off the top of the hill, Rico Pater's been very quick in training for the Swiss. Yesterday, Great Britain's Lamin Dean was actually the fastest man in training, though not everybody had a run, and so his 4-man form is looking good. So 2-man today, 4-man tomorrow, and some of the big horses are back here. Baird Hefty with Rico Pater there on the right. Max Arndt from Germany. He's the experienced head at the top of the German operation at the moment. Alexander Kasyanov is here. So there are some familiar faces. There's lots of new blood coming in as well. That's a great thing for the sport.
It is a great thing for the sport. I mean, it's so much fun. A post-Olympic year, really, especially in America, in bobsled is where you have all of the recruiting happening after the Olympics.
Lots of young track and field athletes coming in, and you can see some familiar names here. So you've got the likes of Nick Cunningham, new brakeman for him. Steve Holcomb with Justin Olsen, one of the only combinations that we've actually witnessed racing before. Even the Latvians, Oskars Kibermanis has got a new brakeman, Vairis Leiboms, and a brand new couple of young Germans as well with Max Arndt. So lots to think about. Ready for the start of the Viessmann FIBT 2-man bobsleigh World Cup season. Martin Haven and Olympian Bree Schaff in the booth here at Lake Placid. First sled off to start the run to Pyeongchang 2018. And Bree Schaff, this is where it begins, really, isn't it? This is day 1 of the ascent of Everest.
This is day 1 of a quad, and I tell you, you have an athlete like Rico Pater who has had a taste. He knows, what it can be like to go to the Olympics, and he's likely coming in here hungry.
Rico Pater of Switzerland gets the season underway. Quick in training with ex-Dutch brakeman Broer van der Zijde. His driver from last year is now sliding for Canada. So Broer is with the Swiss, and a little skid there from Rico Pater, but a good start at 5:14.
And we're going to see that tap a lot. You can see the short wall there, the black. That is because it is a very normal line in bobsled. That is a tight corner. So turn 3, you're going to see a tap, but it actually does set you up for turn 4. Now this is where you get to take a breath. But if you're not used to this track, that's a pretty daunting turn. Shady 2 there, high on the end of 12, barely makes it out of there. I bet we're going to see that a lot today, though. Oh, that's where you see the track goes into a dip, you go weightless, and if you don't have stability, you're going to break into a huge skid. He had rough runs in training, and he is repeating that today.
Well, this is what makes this track so sensationally exciting to watch, because it is so hard to get it clean. Even the winning runs will have taps and skids. He's a second off the track record, a 55.68 to get the year underway. Oh, Bro van der Zijde in the back seat, had a rocky ride there, Bree.
Oh man, those are the runs. I mean, that's very typical of this track, though. You can see weightless in the 12. It is very, very specific spot to catch the pressure. You can see the brakeman pop up there. That's how weightless you go if you don't catch the pressure. And then, of course, that skid, anytime you have runners going sideways, it's like hitting the brakes.
So Rico Pater of Switzerland, first on the ice. Canada's Justin Cripps with Lascelles Brown. Lascelles Brown still one of the strongest brakemen in the business, a real veteran here. I was talking to one of the Americans yesterday. He was born just 10 years after Lascelles Brown started his career. So we got some real differentials in age here. 5:14 the fast start, 5:12, and King will be happy with that.
He will, and he's one of those guys where if you're good, if you are as good as Lascelles Brown, why not keep going? He's a hired gun, man for hire, and if you can keep at it, I tell you, there is no better career than professional sleigh riding.
Justin Cripps, an ex-brakeman, a real powerhouse as well. Turned in some stunning drives last year. Won at Koenigsegg in Bavaria, his first World Cup victory. Little slow on speed.
All right, now you see that right and left tap, that's actually not too bad. That is the average line near the chicanes there. You can take those hits, it sets you up for 17. As long as you don't break into a skid, you're not going to lose a lot of time, and he's pulling away. Still
in the green, has the lead. He was quicker on speed going into the chicane, even though he was a little slower before it, so he found a good line. And that's what puts him 0.05 of a second in the lead. Well, you can hear from the spikes how crisp and cold the ice is, and that means speed.
We're going to be seeing this a lot today. The right, left tap in the chicane, but as you watch the sled now going to the left of your screen, that means he's set up nice and early for curve 17.
Well, the other teammates helping Sled Dog move the equipment around. I'm talking about big, fast brakemen turned into great drivers. This is the guy that really made that. Christoph Langen was one of the legendary drivers of sport, started as a brakeman, but Hefty is still, if they have a brake-pushed competition, he's still going to be in your top 2 or 3.
I mean, this guy is built to push objects. I mean, he looks like he should be out pushing trucks. And when you put that in the driver's seat, it's unbeatable. Silver medal in the Sochi Olympics. He's coming out for a glory tour. He's got his same brakeman. That is a great way to head into a post-Olympic year.
Fast start, 5:12, Justin Cripps of Canada. 5:11 for Hefty of Switzerland.
Just slowly nicking away at these start times. Oh, you can see a little bit of instability there coming out of 1. This ice is shiny, it is hard as fast, and there the skid, popping the runners back and forth, trying to get control there at the top. You do not want to be skidding up there. It's just going to kill your velocity coming down the track.
Ooh, flopped off the corner. This is the team, of course, that won Olympic silver in 2-man, the only team that remains as it was from an Olympic podium this year.
And you can see him struggling for control, high on the end of 12, slamming that spot, but watch those short walls. The black means that a lot of people hit there, breaking away in the chicane.
Decent speed, 123 kilometers an hour.
This is a rockin' roller coaster today, Martin.
Just in the lead at the line, 0.07 of a second.
Everyone just slowly nicking away at these downtimes.
Well, you know, the track was well polished and in great shape at the beginning of training week because it had been used for competition last week by the luge. And often you find the track gets suddenly faster on race day when it's really finely polished. But I think this is just a nice progression all the way through training week, and it's just a wild ride.
It was. They had the whole week to prepare for this, and that actually helps the foreigners, or I don't know if that would make them even more nervous coming in today. And they're on the end of 12, sky high. You have no pressure. In 12, you've got to get on early.
A lot of brakemen bounced up in the air. There's Christoph Langen, the coach of the German Federation. And double 2- and 4-man junior world champion Francesco Friedrich with Torsten Margis behind him. Friedrich, undoubtedly one of the rising stars, and Margis, massive young brakeman.
You know,
wow, look at that, 506, 500's quicker than Hefty. That's enormous speed.
They did some recruiting. Oh no, really late into 3. This is gonna be very interesting to see if he can come back from this. Of course, he's still in the green because of his start, but that was a big mistake up top.
800ths of a second up as the gap vanished at the next clock. No, he holds his advantage. Now he needs a good line.
He's one of 3 junior world champions. Every member of this German squad having won a junior world championship.
1:23.3, top speed through the chicane, and he shot the chicane perfectly.
This is an incredible run. We're gonna see a leader, and this could hold.
Yes, it could. Steve Holcomb has already seen a benchmark laid down by Francesco Friedrich. Well, Christoph Langen, after Germany's singular worst ever sliding Olympics, no medals. 1 top 6 from every athlete that went representing Germany to Sochi. It was an unmitigated disaster. This is where the rebuild starts.
Here we're going to see him headed into 3. Look, runners are pointed late. When you've not been on this track very much, you're pretty much just taking what comes, and that's what a better driver does. You didn't see him panic. You didn't see him freak out. He took the late entrance, and it ended up being okay because he had a better run the rest of the way down.
Well, some smiles down there from René Spies on the right. They're looking happy with that, and rightly so. Huge start. Fifth sled off the line is USA's Nick Cunningham. Casey Wickline, another young new brakeman, and just look at the width of that man. It makes Cunningham look like he's slight, and he definitely is not. Casey is a big, big brakeman.
These two would not make it through a doorway together. Yeah. The single file bobsled.
Cunningham from Monterey, California. Former bull rider. Ex-slider Mike Kahn on the coaching team.
That was a great view of the spikes there.
A lot of noise, lots of kids out from local schools here. They had 2 snow days the last 2 days, the schools, and they're all out at the track today supporting the US athletes. 5:19 for Cunningham.
Okay, he's going to have to work his way back, but home track, a little bit of a skid there. You can see that it's almost like you're floating on top of the ice. That's what happens when it is this well prepared. It is hard to find some grip, but this is Nick's home track. This is where he started driving. If anyone can make it back, still 2,200s back.
He's coming back a fraction, 1:16.4, top speed. Nobody has been quicker.
No, but he had a great line out of 12. That is the best we're going to see it on this type of ice.
1:24.5, a kilometer quicker than anybody else. He is flying in this BMW.
There might not be enough track.
800s, here we go. He's going to sneak it in the line, through the heart. He knows better than the Germans do. Ties for the lead. Well, off that start where he gave away 1,300ths of a second to Francesco Friedrich, he ties him at the bottom. That's the drive.
We have ourselves a race.
Well, there you go. It's a new brakeman, his first ever competition start. You're bound to have nerves. That's right, man.
We're going to see textbook chicane.
And look at the speed. A click and change quicker than anybody else.
That's the home track advantage. Nick knows how to find speed here. We just saw a great run. And, you know, it could be a tough rest of the tour because you're not going to have that advantage in Europe.
Don't forget, he's relatively new to that BMW sled as well, so still learning. Chris Spring of Canada, former Australian athlete. And behind him, Alexander Kopacz. And again, another new recruit to the Canadian program.
What a great way to orient people. First day of school,
Yeah.
first day of the quad. All right, guys, get ready. Oh, no!
Pops out of the grooves, 5:18 to start.
When you are coming out of the grooves, especially in Lake Placid, it is a very long start. So you have to pull. Oh, he is really having trouble getting control. This could be his equipment choice. I don't know if he chose a fat runner. When you're coming out of the grooves, as I was saying, you have to pull back on the D-rings to make sure the runners are straight, because they can kick you late, like he ended up going into turn 1, just wiping up onto the turn, scrubbing a lot of time.
Well, I'm wondering what runners he chose, because -5 isn't exactly freezing ice temperatures, but it's been snowing every day this week, and that will have made the air temperature a little warmer, the ice maybe a little warmer.
Ooh.
He's just behind the 8 ball here, chasing it all the way.
It is skiddy. Now, in sliding sports, you want to run the fattest runner you can control. The problem is if race day, if it's that much more slippery per se, then you're going to have trouble with that setup. Your setup isn't faster if you're skidding.
6400s back. Spring will be very disappointed with that. He was the standout last year, displaced Lyndon Rush as Canada won. You can see that Kopac's having to push them up to the finish line. That's how little speed they had.
That's not the replay I would have wanted as an athlete. That's a push of shame right there.
Maximilian Arndt, another very strong slider.
Well, they get a 5:18 start, so not quite as slow as Nick Cunningham. But
now it just kicks out, and you can see that his runner tips flick back and forth. That's him trying to bring it out of control. You can feel the sled as a driver start to break away like they're going into 3. So frustrating.
Springer will have a smile on his face in half an hour, and then be ready for the second heat, where he'll try and climb back up the order, because he's not going to be a contender on that run. Max Arndt of Germany, Joshua Bloom behind him. Arndt a familiar name, Bloom much less so.
Here we go. This is going to be interesting. Everybody's wondering what Arndt's going to do. Everybody's wondering what the German program is going to do.
5:23. Ooh, dear, that's not going to please too many of them.
Wow, that just highlights the incredible start of Friedrich. I mean, that's a great young pushing driver. That's the best line we've seen out of 3. That was great. That's going to set him up for the rest of this track. The top is really important for your speed at the bottom. You can't make mistakes up there. Tough to come back from.
What Arndt has in his favor is experience of ice, and of this track as well. 1:15.8, he's coming back.
He's having a great run. This is something that is so frustrating. If we don't see a good downtime, he's having a great run, and then it's all going to go back to a start.
Speed's really good. He's closing.
Oh.
No.
Just the mysterious time loss in the heart. That can be a really frustrating section of track. It's 3,500s back. 6th position right now.
Francesco Friedrichs, Nick Cunningham tied for the lead there. Hefty 1700s back in 3rd.
23 gestartet.
Arndt is more known as a 4-man driver. He does maybe use the 2-man to warm up for the 4-man races, though he's still coming out here to win. That's a frustrating place to be right now, especially in a country that is so dominant in sliding sports.
Well, the number on the sled, 11, his World Cup ranking at the end of last season. And at the moment, he is Germany 2, and we have to wait to see what young Nico Walter produces to see if that's going to push him back down to Germany 3. So after a home Olympic Games, you imagine the Russians are full of vim and vinegar and ready to go again, and I think you'd be absolutely right. Their program has never been stronger. Pierre Luder's there in a tassel hat at the back, and Alexander Kazyanov, his young protege, just off the podium in 2- and 4-man, 4th position, Alexander Kazyanov, and he's got veteran breakround Maxim Makrusov behind him.
This is going to be a guide to watch this season. Everyone takes a different approach into the post-Olympic year. Some kind of take it easy. If you medaled especially, you're going to lay back. But when you finish 4th, known as first loser sometimes, oh man, does that fire you up in the off-season, especially having just missed it on a home track. You know, you got to pace yourself, but he's going to be the type of guy that wants to come out this year, and that 4th place is going to fuel him.
always has speed at the bottom. Former brakeman, he should have more pace at the start. 1:16.1 is decent pace.
He laces the chicane
beautifully, second fastest. Here we go. But he's got a lot of deficit to make up. He's only clawing back 100 every few hundred meters. He's going to be 3/10 back at the line. Wow. 55.76, 200s behind Max Arndt of Germany, which is not a bad place to be in if Arndt is in the top 2 or 3. But at the moment, they're tussling for 6th position ahead of Chris Spring.
He's another one of those guys that likes to use the 2-man to warm up for 4-man. His start, 5:31. You're not going to come back from that in a 2-man. When you've got 3 guys pushing you, you can buffer that deficit a bit. This is great. This is what you hope for. You can see starts to break. It's almost like you can wish your way straight in the chicane at that point.
Of course, the double gold medalist Alexander Zubkov of Russia has retired. That leaves things open for the Russians. Now, what about the start record? Current fastest start, 5:06. Oskars Melbardis and Damas Driskins are the start record holders at 5 flat. It's cold and crisp and icy at the top. Will they get enough traction? Can they get down for the first time ever into the 4s? These two can horse a sled off like almost nobody in the business. 5:12. Now, how impressed are the Germans with themselves?
And that was what told us. We're sitting here wondering how was their summer. It was obviously a fun summer. They're taking it easy. They won an Olympic medal.
I tell you what, I saw them strip down for the headshots. They don't look like they've been taking it easy.
They're not going to look like, you know, maybe this is what we talked about, just the slow road to Pyeongchang. These guys got a medal in 4-man. You know, that gives you that confidence, that ability to ease up.
Top speed. He's coming right back down to 224.
Little skid there, but he's got enough speed. With that top speed, it's not going to hurt him his back.
We could have a 3-way tie for the lead at the line. Friedrichs, Cunningham, and... 300s back. Now we really have a race on our hands. Top 3 covered by 300ths of a second. Everybody else nearly 2/10 adrift. Well, he may not have blown the start out of the water, but he drove a storm down the track.
That's a decent slow and steady position to start off the quad.
I tell you what, I've got more spare fat on my little finger than there is on these 2 men put together.
Yeah, the athleticism is so prized in Latvia. These guys seem to be able to play any sport. If you watch them in the gym at the Olympic Training Center, they're out there playing basketball, volleyball. They're great at it all.
Holcomb and Justin Olsen.
Ooh, you can see almost breaking into a skid there. Speed, 124, second fastest speed.
Oskars Melbardis there, another young man who started as a brakeman, young man who started as a ski racer and all-round worry to his mother. Stephen Holcomb, I think she was probably happy when he took up something relatively safe like bobsled. Former Olympic 4-man and world 2- and 4-man gold medalist. Holcomb, talking to him yesterday, he said the one that he doesn't have is the 2-man Olympic gold, and that is now his 4-year focus above all else.
Oh no, hit going into 3. This is another question of setup. Chances are he chose the fattest runner possible because this is his home track, and he is Steve Holcomb. He is confident. He has been sliding maybe as long as anyone out there in this field now.
Come from 32 to 2900s back, 1:16.9, way quicker than anybody else, and he's the man with most experience of this BMW 2-man that was introduced last year. Top speed, 1:24.5 from Cunningham. How close will he get?
He's just going to run out of track. The top hurt him.
He's throwing everything at it. Bad Hefty in 4th is 1700s back. Holcomb just nicks inside. Still in with a shot at a medal. And with only 300s covering the top 3 in front of him, He could well end up winning this one. He needs a good second run, though.
Yeah, he did have a tough draw. You know, starting 10th in the first heat, the ice conditions look great, but it does deteriorate a little bit. Now, coming into 3, we heard a sound, a little tap there. That means he was so late, and when you go into a turn late, the runners just dig into the ice as it tries to change direction and then breaking into a skid. So, if he fixes that, we are going to see Steve Holcomb hanging out in the winner's box on the next heat.
Lots of local elementary schools bringing their kids for a day out of the races. And young Cody Baskew, who's going to come up for the USA later on during the run, he made his first trip down this track at 8 years old. He's going to make a World Cup start for the first time ever in his career. We just rode down to the announce booth with his grandmother and grandfather, and the grandfather is the man responsible for bringing him up for Pee Wee bobsledding. So, you know, what a day for him.
Yeah, and it's probably a good thing Child Protective Services wasn't in the car with us when you bring a child out to bobsled. I tell you, this is one of the best sports in the world, but it is violent. So luckily for the junior programs, they start a little bit lower down.
Yes, they do. You got to work your way up. You don't start at the beginning and work down. So first 10 are down. Francesco Frugix, Nick Cunningham, and Oscar Melbard is covered by 300ths of a second. Holcomb 1500ths back, and Hefty and Justin Cripps could well be a threat there, just a quarter second off. Holcomb with plenty of work to do for Heat 2.
And of course, as always, make sure to check out Whiteface Mountain.
It's a great opportunity for these young kids. Maybe first time at the track for most of them. And you can lean on the railings and get right to the action. You can be closer to a bobsleigh race than pretty much any other form of sport. It's fantastic.
The thing with bobsled is you see it on TV and it looks so smooth, but you have to be at a race to really feel that speed. It sounds like a train coming by.
Yeah. It's like the metro train coming into the station as it rushes by. You get the noise, the vibration from the concrete canal that the tracks are made of, and you get the rush of the wind as well. But you really feel the speed. Coming up in our run, we've got another 9 sleds, the Latvians, the Germans, we've got 2 Korean sleds, and the debut of young Cody Baskew as well. So plenty for the home fans to cheer. Nick Cunningham has a tie the lead, and Stephen Holcomb lying a strong 4th after the first of our 2 heats. Snowy Lake Placid in the Adirondack Mountains. First of 2 heats, the season opener in the FIBT Viessmann 2-man bobsled World Cup. Next up, Oskars Kibermanis started driving just 2 years ago after being a brakeman with Virus Lieboms behind him. This Latvian program, strong on youth and strong on horsepower. Grishav, all these guys are just monster pushers.
They are in Latvia. These guys are famous. Bobsled is a big deal there, and so they're going to get the best athletes in a country that is producing athletes. They all get to go to bobsled. They're not getting lost in the sad world of the NFL.
if you're not a hockey player, then bobsleigh and skeleton are the big sports. 5:14 getaway.
They're definitely set up nicely for their first run. This is another very strong.
Little taps here and there. Not huge skids. He has a shot at coming back from that. That's not as bad as other things we've seen up top.
We're still very young in terms of driving experience. It's only his 2nd race weekend at Lake Placid. You get about 6 minutes in total on ice during a weekend, so that's not a lot of learning time, as you'll appreciate.
That's what I always tell people, when you have 120 seconds of training a day to figure something out. But in an adrenaline sport, it is incredible what that does. That locks it down in your brain. You can learn a phenomenal amount when you are in fight or flight.
4600s behind, becomes 6/10 adrift of the line, just in front of Chris Spring of Canada, who is bumped to 11th place after a very disappointing first run. Oskars Kibermanis in 10th spot with another 8 sleds still to come. When we get to Europe post-Christmas, we'll see more sleds coming in.
There's coming out of turn 12, just hitting the take on to 13. That's an okay line. 13 is actually the turn where you take a breath and you think, okay, getting ready for the next.
Next on the line, Nico Walter, the reigning 2- and 4-man junior world champion, and the giant 6'7" Marco Hubenbecker. Walter making his World Cup debut here. But to call him a rookie is a little unfair to his driving experience, and look at his leg speed as well. He's keeping pace with Hubi, which is not easy.
I mean, really, is there such thing as a German rookie? These guys have all been sliding. He started in luge. These guys have been sliding, some of them since they were 8 years old. I mean, they come so well prepared. Breaking in a little bit of skid, they're going into the turn 4. They come into the sport having lived on ice.
Junior world champion in luge, junior world champion in bobsleigh. Hasn't tried skeleton yet, as far as I'm aware. Christoph Langen probably wouldn't let him either. 115, good speed.
He's having a great trip.
Beautiful run.
He's had a couple of trips down here. 123.1 is good speed as well.
This is really impressive. If you haven't been to Lake Placid and all you've done is the German tracks, this is a worker's track. You are constantly going, and maybe it's all adrenaline driving that sled. Not a great finish time, sitting in 10th right now.
Well, ahead of Oscars Kibermanis and Chris Spring of Canada. So, World Cup debut for Nico Walter, shakes his head at the bottom. It's a day 1 of his career, run 1 of his career. He can go and improve on it in run 2.
Autographs will be given out. Signing autographs at 11 o'clock at the Medals Plaza. 12:30 for the awards.
Watch the knee drive. As they're coming over the crest when you're pushing, you still have a few more steps. You're accelerating a sled downhill. So bobsled is awesome because you have so much power getting the sled out of the hole, but then you have to have overspeed as well as you're still accelerating downhill.
Well, the next Winter Olympic Games are in Pyeongchang, Korea, 2018. And the Korean program is now really dropping into high gear. Yoon Jung-won with Young Wo-seo behind him. And Yoon Jung has been on the World Cup, and especially here in North America sliding. It's the closest set of tracks in North America to Korea, their homeland. So they've been based here. This is like season 4 or 5 for some of these guys. Some of the brakemen, though, started in October, November. So there are new boots. Look at that, though, 509 getaway.
Wow.
And that's why they've got new brakemen. The drivers have learned their trade, and now they're dropping the big motor in behind.
That's incredible. These guys have come out, like you said, they've been on this track. This is considered one of their home tracks. They've won America's Cups here, but that push is so telling of a country that is hosting the Olympics in 4 years. Wow. To come out and outpush the likes of Olympic champions, that's a great beginning for this Korean team. They've got the equipment. Now, ooh.
122, not bad speed.
Yeah, now it's about lacing the chicane.
Looking at top 10 run here. And it's that extra hoof at the start that's really helping push them into a competitive position. 55.83 ahead of junior world champion Nico Walter, ahead of Oscar Kibermanis, ahead of Chris Spring. And when they get to Europe, they will be using the brand new Korean-built Hyundai sleds as well.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, yeah baby, they're coming.
Watch out, 2018.
Some of these brakemen can't have more than a dozen trips down in a bobsled.
Choroso, that's Korean for good job. I would say that's a solid start to the year.
Attention
Tough
to the track. The
exit
track
of
is
2, but he comes right back. The sled is drifting, that means it's skidding. Watch for that drift.
So Yoon Jung-won in 10th place, and here is compatriot Dong-Young Kim. Yoon Jin-suk behind him in the brakeman seat. These guys are looking faster and faster with every passing day. For them, this is the most important 4 years of their lives, probably.
It is no easy position to be in hosting a home Olympics. That was redundant, but if you have the advantage of the home track. That also puts the weight of the country on your shoulders. But they're training these guys every day to be in that position and maximize it.
Little rattle down the wall from Kim. 5:28 start, out the same as young Nico Barter.
Ooh, dropping a runner out of 8 there. You go in late, you have no pressure to catch, and you're just gonna fly off the end. Dropping a runner though, not as bad. You can see him working really hard to get on to 12, forcing it.
Just saved it, that was looking a little worrying.
And taking the high line around 17, turn 18. That transition there into 19 can be pretty rough if you don't grab 18 well enough.
So 56.48, 14th place for Kim. A 5:28 start compared to the 5:09 of their teammates tells a lot of the story in the difference between them.
Could be a matter of the difference in the pushing drivers, or maybe they found themselves an all-star brakeman that's going to be their go-to for Pyeongchang.
Final five sleds of run
There's
number
a
1.
huge runner drop, and when you're in the back, if you don't have a pad underneath you as a brakeman, that is a tailbone bruise.
It's where the sled falls away underneath you. You know things are going to get squirrely. For Great Britain, in North America, Lamin Dean. John Jackson is back home recuperating post-injury. And congratulations to he and Paula Walker, who have become mummy and daddy very recently. Jordan Smalley in behind, another new young brakeman in the program.
Come on now!
Experienced Pete Gunn behind. The girls are alongside as well. Women will be racing tomorrow. So all the British girls are up here. Again, a lot of them very new to this sport on an international level.
Lemon Dean, or Dino as they call him. Not that new. We were actually in the same Bob school together in 2007 here in Lake Placid. So you could almost call this his home track. Except for maybe he hasn't had that amount of time. He did start here. That's a decent line going into 4. This is where, as a driver, you are just trying to set everything up. If something goes wrong at the beginning there, it's really hard because those turns come one after another, really short transitions.
You see when you get late onto one corner, it affects 2 or 3 down below.
Compounds in a major way. Hitting out of 12, that's not going to hurt too bad. It's far worse to hit and skid in sliding sports.
Speeds 4 or 5 kilometers an hour down the way he'd like to be. He was very quick yesterday in a 4-man. 2-man is a very different kind of sled to handle. And he's going to be 15th place, 56.64. So nearly a quarter-second back on Kim of Korea. Bit of a rocky ride for Jordan in the back seat there, but welcome to the World Cup. Well, Lamin's day job is guarding Her Majesty the Queen. He's a guardsman in the British Army.
Put it on its side, please.
The British Army is one of those countries that does have a program for their athletes. In the U.S., they have the world-class athlete program with the Army. In other countries, it's policemen. In Germany, a lot of those guys are police officers.
Francesco Friedrichs, Nick Cunningham tied for the lead. Oscar Smelbardis just 300s off. Stephen Holcomb and Baird Hefty. Justin Cripps also perhaps in the frame for medals in the top half dozen. There's the Team GB at the bottom. Top of the track for Alexei Stulnev, Nikolai Nedzalov. Stulnev, another slider who is coming out of the shadow of Commander Zubkov, the double gold medalist in Sochi, who's now retired. As Pierre Ludus tries to find new athletes to really set this Russian program on fire.
That was a great load, really efficient. At 5:31, that's gonna be tough to come back from, but I would wager he's just thinking, trying to get down. He actually crashed twice out of turn 2 in training this week.
Well, Ludus knows that he's got to bring new young guys in. He's looking at the young Latvians. He's going to be looking at young Francesco Friedrichs and thinking, okay, these guys, they've got to keep the program running, but I need new blood. I need new talent somewhere, because at the moment, these guys are not going to win medals for it.
Now, when you've got the reigning king, when you've got Alexander Zubkov carrying a program for that long, I mean, sometimes that can bring the level of play up, and sometimes it just weeds people out.
Now, all bets are off in Russia. If you can lay down a marker, suddenly you can become the big new star. 14th place, 56.44. And a rattly ride for Alexei Stulnev.
I did a bit of coaching with the FIBT school earlier this season, and there was Russian Olympic champion brakeman getting in the driver's seat. So what we're seeing right now may not be the preview of what's to come. Those guys were so good. This is the chicane. This is how you want it to go. Wow, that's close to the wall there, setting up. Sometimes if you have a perfect chicane, though, it almost messes up your 17 because you're not used to a perfect chicane. And all of a sudden, you don't know how to do it right.
Well, here is a big day. He was in the World Championships in San Moritz 2 years ago as a spectator to soak up the atmosphere. He started here at 8 years of age, still a teenager, making his World Cup debut. Cody Basque of the USA, with another young brakeman behind him, Alex Harrison. This is a brand new team.
We've always called him Little Cody Basque, but he is little no more. He maxed out the testing for this summer. You have a 5-item combine in the U.S. program to come and check up. For drivers, say it's not as important, it's how you rank brakemen, but it shows how you trained, and you can see how much work he's put in this off-season.
He's been sliding this Lake Placid track since he was in Kiwi Bobs at 8 years old. 3200s back. I'm sure he's been struggling to get some rest overnight, maybe feeling a little tight this morning. It's a huge day.
It is. Home track can almost be too much pressure. When you know you've got a shot and this is your best shot at a great finish all season, that's tough to handle. 3500s back, good speed.
How much can he close? Could he get himself close to a top 6 finish? He's down from 12th to 10th position. Closing a fraction, and 11th at the line, 55.85. Just ahead of Nico Valter, 200s behind one of Korea.
It's tough to be in that start position. When you're 17th off, these conditions are amazing. Tony Carlino, the manager of the track, has just got a gorgeous track here today, but still, when there's the sprints was, say, a half an hour ago, maybe more, it's just going to slow down that much.
Well, you know how often they run the Zamboni down on an ice rink. Well, you know, they don't have that same effect here, so it does just get a little sticky on the runners. And there is Cody Basque, just out of a top 10 finish, but he'll start looking for that in Heat 2. Nikita Zakharov of Russia with Yuri Chubarov behind him. Again, Chubarov new to the program for this season. Zakharov, another 2 or 3 year man in World Cup. Liking Pierre Luda's new hat. That's a great look. Well, let's see what this guy is going to produce in a start, and that might give us an indication of where his future lies.
He's got the angry eyes. Did you see that? Those are the Giannis Minins eyes that you do not see that very often. It's always fascinating to look at the focus, the type of focus a driver has. This is a sport where you have to be fired up. You're pushing an object that's over 400 pounds from a standstill. But then, as a driver, you get in and you have to be completely focused, calm, cool, zen, meditate your way down that track so you don't overthink it.
Well, they push it to a speed of around 24, 25 miles an hour. So that is absolute flat-out Usain Bolt top speed. All right, they have a grade to go with them, but not all the way. 1:13.9, not great speed.
His run is not looking too bad. These guys have gotten a bit of time here, and you can see that he's having what I would consider an average Lake Placid run, but still, it's not going to put him in the mix.
He's going to be vying with teammate Alexei Stulnev for a top 15 spot, and he just doesn't make it. 17th place, 500s behind Stulnev. And I'm saying now, neither of them will be in a Russian suit at the Games in 4 years. Off a 5:30 start, 5:31, it's never happening. They're not going to drop 0.2 of a second in their start, which is the very minimum they need to find. I think these guys are marking time for Russia.
And when you've got the talent that's coming up in the Russian program, when you've got guys that were good enough to push Zubkov, then that's just going to weed out athletes like this.
It's a tough time to be in the Russian Federation because everybody knows rebuilding is on its way. Well, now, talk about rebuilding. For the first time in World Cup, we have a Brazilian men's sled. We also have the Brazilian women competing tomorrow. Edson Bindliati, a 3-time Olympian, almost never a World Cup athlete. And Ordile Pisoni behind him. Again, we talked about how the Koreans started small and began to grow. Of course, Brazil have a home games coming up in 2 years, but that's a summer games, so it ain't going to affect these guys much other than watching TV.
But Brazil, this is one of those teams that this is the heart of bobsled. These guys come out, no one's paying attention, no one is funding them. I mean, they're barely getting enough funding to come to these races. They do it because they love it, and this is really the stuff you pay attention to. It inspires the sport to have a nation, a warm weather nation, coming out, doing it just because they can, because they love it.
And I tell you what, they started within 500s of Russia 2 and Russia 3. So that tells you something about Russia 2 and Russia 3 start, but it also tells you the Brazilians are actually in their swimming.
No, they're great athletes. They were at the driver's school as well, and they've got some of their bigger brakemen coming up and learning the sport.
120.4. Maybe the slowest speed we've seen through there.
And a lot of times, Edson is an experienced pilot. He's been here a lot. This is not a bad run, but this is a racing sport, and it does come down to equipment as well.
57.02. A few hundreds behind Lamindine of Great Britain in 19th position, so he'll be first out of the start shed for the second heat. This, as you say, this is where they spend most of their time racing in the North America's Cup, in the US and Canadian tracks here, Park City, Calgary, Whistler, so it's familiar territory for them. If they venture off to Europe for the rest of the season, it'll be very new.
Exited turn 12, just avoiding the wall there. That was one of the better 12-13 transitions we've seen.
See how when he hits the wall, it vibrates the camera on the roof?
Oh, this sport is intense. You have to come to a bobsled race if you can, stand in a turn and feel these sleds go by. You don't watch them go by, you feel them go by. It's a rumble, an earthquake.
So Edson Bindliati of Brazil will be the first man to take on the track in Heat 2. And going out last will be our current joint leader, Francesco Friedrichs. 5:06 start rocked us back in our seats at the beginning of what was a stunning run. He's the joint leader with the USA's Nick Cunningham. Oskars Melbardis of Latvia lies just 300s behind, and any of the top half dozen could easily take a medal. We've got under a quarter second covering top 6 sleds, and one mistake from any of our front runners could see the others take advantage. So this is how they lie after the first of our 2 heats. Both heats count. Your total time is what decides the winner. 300s cover the top 3 from Germany, from the USA, and from Latvia. USA with a second sled in the mix with Stephen Holcomb. Switzerland's Bert Hefty and Justin Cripps of Canada rounding out the top half dozen. And who knows, maybe the second sled could make a bid for glory as well. Rico Pater. Beyond him, you've got to think that the rest of them are a little bit out of the running for the medals, but lots of personal battles to be fought. Cody Basque from 11th place will look to move into the top 10 and conceivably higher on his World Cup debut. He's not alone. Nico Valch, another debutant. So too Bindliati of Brazil. He'll take on Mamindine of Great Britain as they battle for the penultimate spot on the rankings. So that is it from the first of our 2 heats here in Lake Placid. Join us for the second shortly when we go 19 down to 1, last to fast, for the first gold medal of the season.